Christmas and birthday until I was about 14, my family got me some set of Legos. I loved building them. My family hated stepping on them. If you've ever had to try and navigate a minefield of Legos, perhaps you know what that's like. For a while, I'd set up shop at our downstairs utility room. We had thousands of pieces on our workbench and just piles of instructions on the floor. I'd spend sometimes hours down there in my Lego cave. Needless to say, my father had high hopes I'd grow up to be an engineer. Many signs were there, right? The trouble is, you don't need to know much math or science to be an amateur Lego enthusiast. By the time I got to high school, I felt like my West Point graduate calculus teacher was trying to teach me a different language. That same teacher taught physics, and if I hadn't been friends with the smartest girl in the class, I probably wouldn't have made it out alive. Instead, my talents drew me towards journalism, film, and theater. I fell in love with storytelling and how it manifests through writing, imagery, and music. Now, I drove the struggle bus of calculus proofs and physics problems, but I still found science technology interesting. After all, numbers and data tell their own stories. But to me, they always lacked the human element, that emotional connection that makes for a really compelling story. Fast forward 3 years, and I'm falling in love with Christopher Nolan's Interstellar. Now, if you haven't seen it, this movie really does not disappoint. It has a really impressive cast, an incredibly talented director, and some wicked cool special effects. But it was the story that made me fall in love. Nolan reveals the terrifying beauty of outer space and delves into some really deep theoretical physics. He reminds us about what's out there beyond our Earth and what's possible. I knew I wanted that adventure, that journey into the unknown. Humans are explorers down to our very core, and I could feel that urge to join the movement on the next frontier. I got that opportunity when I signed up for a spaceflight policy course here at American University. And that's where I learned just how much space means to all of us. Space is a network of satellites that gives us GPS, weather forecasting, and the ability to talk to our friend halfway across the world in real time. It helps us monitor carbon emissions and strengthen global water security. It's an opportunity for international collaboration and cooperation. It helps us develop and test new technologies for human and environmental health. And it represents a boundless field of scientific research. I found that human element to the math and science story that I couldn't see in high school. Space forces us to confront some deep philosophical questions about the future of humanity, but delivers tangible services that makes life better for us on Earth every day. Space exploration is not just about leaving Earth, but saving it. A really important part of this mission is STEM education. If you haven't heard of it, STEM looks at integrating science, technology, engineering, and math. For a society that is growing more and more dependent on technology, we need generations of STEM students who understand how it all works and who can continue to innovate. But this shouldn't come at the cost of the arts and the humanities, nor should students be taught to disregard the value of those disciplines. So instead, I'll introduce STEAM. STEAM is a newer educational philosophy that looks at integrating science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. The first time I heard of STEAM was actually from NASA Deputy Administrator Dava Newman. In a keynote, she talked about the importance of drawing from the collective intelligence of all disciplines to go further in space. So think, what could we accomplish with artists exploring the human condition in space? How much further could we go with communicators, making space relevant and sexy again? What could we learn from designers and architects about building future space settlements people may actually want to live in? And we're already doing so much through the social sciences, looking at the emotional and psychological challenges humans will have to face in space. STEAM is really important, and making space more interdisciplinary will take us further than we've ever gone before. As an example, let's take a look at space's massive PR problem. Now, you can probably already tell, I understand how important space is, but the average person doesn't. Now that the adrenaline of the space race has largely drained from public consciousness, people don't find it worth their while anymore. Now, we may have some amazing accomplishment like reaching Pluto, and that hits mainstream news and gets everyone excited again. That's only for about 2 weeks or so. Taxpayers don't like spending their money on massive government programs that don't yield immediate, direct results. It took us more than 9 years to get to Pluto. And the biggest question always is, why go to space when we have so many problems here on Earth? What's hard about the why of space is that it's an experience, not just a fact or a figure. That's why writers and filmmakers have been some of the most influential leaders in cultivating an interest in space. Because they create a narrative about it that integrates it into our human story here on Earth. They develop the imagery, simplify the science, and breathe life into what we know as an otherwise lifeless universe. Space is a really exciting place to be in right now because we have new entrants coming in to address this PR problem. Now, besides all of the billionaire entrepreneurs that have decided to set up shop in this industry, we have business people studying new methods of identifying that business case for space. We have policymakers who are creating a real framework for a viable space economy. And we have artists and designers and communicators who are putting space into realistic contexts and spreading that message through channels people actually pay attention to. I am a communicator. To the field of space exploration, I act as a translator. I look for that human element to the space story and help shape the why thousands of people spend their lives looking up. So when was the last time you played with your favorite childhood toy, like Legos? Before many of us entered a school system that segmented our education into different subjects, we were learning about the world through integrated, STEAM-oriented experiences. We need to remember what it's like to collaborate, to build something new and something stronger. If I had known that that Lego spaceship I was building was a model for something I could one day fly on, I may have tailored my skills to the space industry much sooner, instead of falling into it. The technical fields don't benefit from excluding the ideas and the perspectives of the other half of humanity. STEM fields need people who can take their work and integrate it into our human story on Earth to make it as multidimensional as physics already predicts our universe to be. Thank you.